Hello, and welcome to another episode of How to Learn Excel through a live project. So, in the previous episode, we learned multiple complex formulas like SUMIFS, QuantiFS, and all those things. And we also learned about how to manipulate the date and how to manipulate the string values. So, let us implement all those learnings in our expense tracking application so that we can arrive at the summary of expenses we have done every month towards every expense head as well as every payment type which we have defined. Let us jump directly to the course. So let us see now how we can implement the formula which we have learned. So our first objective is to find how much money I have spent towards each payment mode. That is how much I have spent through cash, I've spent through Apple Pay, Google Pay, WhatsApp payment, everything. So I'm at this first step, I'm not worried about in which month I have spent the money. So how we will do that? Implement one new column here for our learning that is called amount spent. And let us calculate how much money we have spent through cash first. So I am going to use the formula called SUMIFS. And what I'm going to calculate, I'm going to calculate the total amount spent. So I'm selecting the amount column. I'm selecting from row number 3, which is the starting of my expense tracker, to 18. So even though there are no data available here, I'm taking it up to 18 so that tomorrow, if I'm adding more data, it will automatically calculate. So then the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the payment mode as the next criteria. So let me select this. So I selected from E13 to E18. And next, I'm going to define the criteria. As a first step, I'm going to find how much I spent towards cash only. So I say if the hard coded value, I say cash. Now it has come with the $2. So if I go to the expense tracker, by cash, I spent $2. Now at this time, I have hard coded my criteria as cash. But I want to find for every payment mode how much I have spent. So next step, what I'm going to remove, in the first step, I have validated whether my formula is working fine or not. I'm going to do the next step. So that is, I'm going to remove this cash as a hard coded value, and instead of that, I'm going to select this cell B3. Now also my formula is working fine. Since I have very minimal data, it is easy for me to validate whether my formula is working fine or not. Now, if for calculating whether how much I spent through Apple Pay, Google Pay, etc., the easiest way is copy this formula to this. But it won't work. As we know, we need to be very sure about the range. So if you go to the first column, the expense tracker range is starting from third row to 18th row, and for our criteria also it is starting from third row to 18th row, and if you go to the next, it starts from fourth row, but that is not correct, so we have to go for the absolute reference. So I'm going to do the absolute reference for the row value. I say $h $8, similar thing $3 to $18. One more thing you need to be aware when you're using the SUMFS formula is if you are selecting this range from third row to 18th row for your sum range, you need to ensure that for your criteria range also you are using the same range. Let's see what happens if I'm making it 17. So it will give you an error. So we need to ensure that both the ranges are having the same value. Now if I copy this, once again I'm getting a blank value because I have not done anything with Apple Pay. So let us validate it. I'm going to change this particular row from SCB account to Apple Pay. And now if I go here, it gives me the result as $330. Now what I can do, I can copy this formula to all these rows by just dragging it. So we have spent through WhatsApp payment $10. Let us validate. So we have spent through WhatsApp payment $10 and cash $2 and Apple Pay $330. Everything is coming. Okay. Now we are clear about how to use the SUMIFS formula with one condition. That is, like, we are having only one condition called how much money I spent towards each payment mode. The next thing what we need to do is we need to expand this to have month-wise breakup also. Let us take it as a next step. And one more point you need to be aware is about the sheet reference. So we have implemented the formula in the sheet called payment mode. But if you look at, all the references are coming from the sheet called expense tracker. So in the formula, if you notice, let me expand this. So we say the sum range is coming from expense tracker column H3 to column H18, and the criteria column also is coming from expense tracker column E3 to E18, but the criteria is coming from the current worksheet. So I just wanted you to be aware of it. Now, in the expense tracker, we implemented one hidden column for year number and month number so that we can summarize the value based on the year and month. Let us implement the same thing here also by using one hidden row. You can, so that I just want to keep you aware, like, we can do it without this hidden column also by just validating your criteria with year number and month number. That is not a problem, but your formula will become more complicated and it is little difficult to maintain and manage. So we are taking a shortcut. So I am creating here yet another value called concatenate. You can use either concat or concatenate. I say year of H3, comma, hyphen, month of H3. So you need to be aware of one more thing. In expense tracker, I created year hyphen month. So here also you need to keep year and month so that it can easily compare. So because it is a text value, it is not a date anymore. So I'm copying this formula to until December. Okay. So this is a shortcut. Please note that you can do it even without that. Now, as a first thing, let us try to expand this particular formula to include our month value also. Right now, we have only the payment mode. Now, let us implement it this way. So, I am typing it once again. Sum if S. The sum range is my expense amount, and the criteria range is my payment mode. This is all are fine. And my criteria, I'm going to payment mode again and say that it is payment mode. This is fine. Now I'm adding one more criteria. So here the sum range is not required because, like, we have already defined the sum range. So the criteria which I'm going to do here is the year month column. You need to note the row number should be same for every criteria as well as sum range. So once again, we already learned I'm going to use it as a absolute reference. And then I say, what is the criteria we are going to check? In our payment mode, we are going to select the column as the criteria. So this is for 2024 January, whether I have made anything through cash. No, we have made it only on 24th July. The month of July 2024 only we have made the expense through cash. So that is why it is not coming. So let us validate it. I am going to change the date from 24 July to 2024 to 24 January 2024. I made $2 as cash. Let us check whether it is coming. Yes, it is coming. Okay. So let us the similar way. Let me make everything as January, and then let me copy this formula through here. It is not working. There is some problem here. So what is the problem? Because in the payment mode, if you look at press F2 and see here, we made a reference to the month and year through H2 in the first column, in the first row. And in the second row, if you look at, it will go to the next row value, that is H3. So that means you need to give an absolute reference for the row H$2. So now if I copy it, it will work. But for WhatsApp payment, do we have WhatsApp payment here? Okay, so WhatsApp payment is not coming. Why? Because we have an error in our formula. That is here, when we have done it again, we have not included the absolute reference. So let us just give absolute reference for here also. $3, $18. Now if I copy this formula, it will work fine. Are we done with this formula? We have not yet. Why? Because if we copy this here, we will find another problem. Why? Because our sum range and criteria range are having a column reference which cannot be changed, because our sum range should be always H and our criteria range should be always E and C. So here, when you are moving it here it is coming as H, E and C. But if you move here, as usual, since we are not given a absolute reference, it will have problem again. So let us create an absolute reference for this also. I have column H, column 8, column E 3, and then we will go for column C, column 8. And what about this payment mode? When you are moving from here to here, now if I am copying it here, again it won't work because it will go to the payment type instead of payment mode as our criteria. So we need to ensure that our payment criteria also is defined. So let me copy this formula once again and copy it here and copy it here. Now if I am going and making my expense tracker and make everything as February, for example, let me do only for one. So for February, for WhatsApp payment, the value has come. Now, what you can do, you can copy everything and paste until December. So if you are adding any new expense head, for example, let me just create one more expense head for the month of April, for example, 3rd April 24. This formula will automatically work. I'm selecting something called water bill payment and I'm paying it through card number 0057. I'm spending some $25 towards it. Let me paste the format here. Now if I go to the payment mode and go to the April for I paid through card, let's just validate it here. I paid through credit card and the expense I made in the month of April is $25. You can make everything as currency, not a problem. Okay. I think you all learned how to implement the sum if s condition in a complex situation. So now we don't need this amount spent. We can delete it. So now how I will copy this formula to the expense head also. We'll do that as a next step. It's so simple. It is just a repetition of what we have done. But during this time, we will learn what are all the problems we face when we are copying a formula from one sheet to another sheet. Now let us see how we can implement the same formula in our expense head definition sheet. Basically, there is no difference between how we have implemented this formula in the payment mode and in the expense head. But only the criteria how we are selecting is different. So in this exercise, we will learn what are the things we need to take care when we are copying a formula from one sheet to another sheet. So that is our intention. So first, let me create a new hidden row the same way what we have done for the payment mode to arrive at the year number and the month number. So I'm going to create a concat of year of. I'm selecting this table. So you need to know one slight difference also. I mean, when we are working with a normal Excel sheet, when we are using this formula, we are referring it through this cell number. But in this table, we have defined it as a table. So you can refer the column name instead of the cell address. So if you notice, like it comes with the table is named as table 6. So it has a headers and it has a column value, column title as January 24. So that is why it is coming like this. Okay. So then I'm going to use a hyphen and then I'm going to select the month of this value and we got it as 2024 1. Let us just copy the same formula till December here. Okay. Now let us try with copying the formula from the payment mode to this table. So I have this formula here. I'm going to copy this formula and right click and going to paste special. You can simply paste, but then also it is better to paste special and select the formulas. Okay. Will it work? It will work to certain extent, except that we need to define our criteria separately. So let me just make this particular formula editor a little bigger and then let us go to F2. Okay. First, this is our sum range. Is there any change? No change. So this is our criteria range. So in the criteria range, now we have E3 to E18. That is, if you go here, that is a payment mode. But here what we are going to do, we are going to do with expense head, that is in column D. So the simple thing we can do is change this E to D. Remaining thing are same. So what is the criteria? This we have copied from the previous table. So here it will be expense head. So since we have defined it as a table, we don't need to worry about our relative or absolute reference here. So it will automatically use it for all the rows here. And similarly, the next criteria we have used is our date. So we have created C3 to C8. So here it is C3 to C8. We don't have any problem here. And then we are going to say it is referring to the payment mode sheet. So this we will delete and we will say we need to refer this. So once again, we will have very clear absolute reference. So the row will change. So, sorry, the column will change, but the row will remain one for all the formulas. Okay. I copy this. So naturally, in the January 2024, if you go to the expense tracker, so we have newspaper and school fee. We are spent in January. That is $2 and $30. Let us see whether everything is working. Newspaper $2. Whether we have here, yes, it has come. It is working fine. And next we have spent through school fee $330. Whether school fee, okay, here it is row number 8 is school fee $330. It is working fine. Now let us copy all these things and paste it in all the month. I pasted here. So now we will see we have $25 each in April, June, and October. Do you know what is the problem here? The problem is because we said 2024, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it starts from 2, 4. So there is a problem with the formula here. So the best way I can do is just delete everything and make it as year of G2, comma, month of G2. Okay. So this is a problem with the table related formula. So instead of using table, I'm using the cell reference, and I have resolved this problem. Now, if you look at everything is having the proper value. So I'm adding a sum for all these things and copy this and paste to everything. Now, if I go to the expense tracker, if I'm adding some more expense, 5, let me add it for something for June, 4th of June 24. I do it for telephone bills. I pay through HSBC account, which is a direct debit. I pay $120. Let me format this to everywhere. If I go to the payment mode, in the June, I made $120. And if I go here towards my expense head, I made for telephone bill, I made $220. So I hope we are very clear about how to use the SUMIFS formula in a complex scenario where we are referring multiple Excel sheets to implement the formula. Okay. Now, is it required to create this kind of a complex formula to arrive at the summary table? No, there is yet another simple way Excel has provided. That is called the pivot table. So the only disadvantage with the pivot table in this kind of scenario is that pivot table will bring only the records which are available. But here, even if there is no record, we are bringing the value. That is a difference. So we'll learn about pivot table in our next episode, and we'll understand more about how to use your analytics more easily with a pivot table. Thank you. Thanks for watching. And I hope you are able to get some benefit out of this course. And it will be more beneficial for us if you can provide your comments and feedbacks. We always welcome your comments and feedback. And for every comments, I'll be replying personally. And if any improvement is needed, we'll implement the same. Thank you. Thanks again. Bye bye.